enduring spirit on the whiskey trail.
Is it? It is! Mr. Dundas has appeared, which means it's the start of episode 6, Whiskey Unscripted. How are you, Gordon?
I'm very well, not too bad. Looking forward to a few days off at Easter. Pretty good.
Yes, I've got a nice Easter shirt on. I hope I see you've made the effort to dress up in the Easter parade.
I'm not sure that's particularly Easter, but okay.
Now, we can't lie. We've met each other about a half an hour ago.
That's right.
We recorded recorded an interview. So we're going to play that, Gordon, but the interview did last a little bit of time. Would that be fair?
Well, I mean, when you have someone who talks as much as our interviewee, then it's not a surprise.
But it's not a surprise. So before we go to that interview and we do what we're drinking during the interview,
of course,
Gordon, at the start of we've got a lot of things lined up, but we're just going to go straight to the interview. But before that, anything that's caught your eye this week, whether it's whiskey news or whether it's just in the wider worlds of the drinks industry?
No, I mean, I haven't really, if I'm honest, there's not been that much. There's always some new releases and things like that. But I mean, I think, there's good news sort of generally everywhere in the whiskey industry. I think as an industry, we're doing okay. Tariffs coming off is good. Brexit doesn't particularly affect us as much as maybe one or two other industries, but I believe that's all getting a bit better as well. So, and look, in the UK, we're lucky. I think we're relatively lucky. COVID is really quite low at the moment compared to Europe, unfortunately. So, yeah, there's nothing that particularly has caught my eye, if I'm honest. But let's just hope things keep going in the right direction.
On the whiskey front, for those that were lucky enough to catch us on Facebook and YouTube with a great tasting on last Friday. We're now recording this in the Easter weekend here in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd of April 2021. That was last week, 26th of March. Great fun, Gordon.
Oh, fabulous. Great tasting. We had Lauren and we had Blair on from the distillery. We had you and me, and we tasted the 12. We tasted the new Legacy series, and my God, the final whiskey was a Madeira cask, a hogshead finished or seasoned with Madeira, fully matured for 13 odd years, something like that. And I've still got a sample of it. Absolutely sensational. And there was only 250 bottles. I think they've all sold out. Sold out in about couple of days. So
yeah. I think,
really
do you think that's the difference, just as a wider point in the world of whiskey, before we get into talking to Stuart Hendry? We hear a lot about finishing, and people say about finishing this and finishing that, and it's great, of course, but you've just said this was 13 years in a Madeira cask. This was not finished for 6 months or finished for 10.
No, I mean, I think
this was an amazing style.
Yeah, I mean, I think most people, if you mention port casks in the world of whiskey, or you mention Madeira casks, or even rum casks, or things like that, people would immediately think, that's going to be, or Pedro Jimenez, they immediately think it's going to be finished. They immediately think this is going to be bourbon initially, probably, or a refill, sherry or something like that, finished to give you the influence of Madeira. But even in that, or port, or whatever, when you fully mature, the whole dial changes a little bit, and you get the influence of the oak, you get the influence of the Madeira over that time, and you get so I mean, it's just a totally different way of effectively making whiskey, tying up casks for a longer period of time, and it's something we tend to do at Glengoyne and Tam do in terms of maturing full term, and we don't really see any real urge to change that, although we have finished one of our whiskies, a Pedro Jimenez, for travel retail, which won a massive global award. So we can do finishing as well. But, finishing is great if you're doing it for the right reasons. And that would be and there's no definition on finishing. I think we've talked on this before, but you can have a 30-year-old whiskey that's matured for 3.5 years in a bourbon cask and finished for 26.5 years in a sherry cask. Yeah. It doesn't really make sense, but you can do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love to get all that. And I'm going to put this section to the next episode, which was Ask Dundas, which I've just kind of shortened down to Dundas. which I think might be a TV show for you, Gordon, in the future.
Okay.
I've got 2 or 3 questions there. I'm going to hold them back. And if anyone's listening or watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or iTunes, go to the Facebook page or go to Instagram, give us a question or 2 about just what you've said there.
Yeah.
You can finish for as long or as short as you want. Any questions about the world of whiskey, we'd love to throw them to Gordon.
Sure.
Some fun ones.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to take that part. Now, on to the main events. This came in the back of the World Whisky Awards. Gordon, could you just explain? Run by the Whisky Magazine. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I mean, basically, they have 2 sets of awards. They have the Icons of Whiskey, which celebrate people and place. So they celebrate, they sort of celebrate retailers and distilleries and distillery managers and brands and things like that. And then there's the World Whiskies Awards, which are about the liquids. So the way that they run them is they run them from, so they'll do a Scotland section, which covers everybody within Scotland. Rest of the world covers all the other places which don't particularly focus. So US would be a focus area. So they have the US awards. They have, I think they have there's China awards. They have Australia, I think, Canada, Ireland. These are the main producing areas. So they have their dedicated awards, and the winners of each of these awards go up against each other in the global award. And our colleague Stuart has not just picked up the global gong. He's an icon.
Well, what I should have, I never mentioned in this interview coming up, but really when you think about all the years he's been there and all the numbers of people going through that door, you are looking really into the millions over the space of 20 years. If you're averaging between 50 and 70,000 a year, roughly.
Yeah.
So
unbelievable. And Stuart is, he'll tell you, he's been there so long. He gets it right to the core. And the other thing which he's brilliant at is building teams, which is really, really important. So he's a fantastic thing to listen to. Absolutely great.
Here we go. Take it away, Stuart Hendry.
And Stuart has triumphed as the global brand home manager. So congratulations. And all I can simply say is when you go to Glengoyne and you see how, and we hope that will be very soon, and you see the experience that has been built by Stuart and his team, it's totally deserved.
Well, thank you. There's a few things to say in that, if I may. Firstly, those of you watching on YouTube will quickly work out that it is the beautiful distillery which is attracting people there, and very much not me. And no, I mean, I'm joking aside. I mean, I've been at Glengoyne for way over 20 years now. It's been a while, and it's a stunning place. I mean, right now I'm sitting at home. I'm 7 miles from there. I'm being denied access to the work because I'm not, frankly, an essential worker, and I think I agree with that, to be fair. But I cannot wait to go back there on a day like today. There's a blue sky, the sun splitting the sky. It's one of these sort of chilly Easter mornings, but just beautiful weather. If you were to rock up at Glengoyne, you'll see Ben Lomond in the distance sitting there, sparkling away. And then you come into Glengoyne, you enjoy yourself there, and you sit and have a little dram of the good stuff, looking out over the little loch and waterfall at the back. And actually, we're counting down to that happening again. We're going to be resuming in a sort of slightly restricted way come May, and then once we get back into June, we hope things will open up further, and it's sort of one step at a time. But the reason that the only reason anyone would win any awards for Glengoyne was a couple of them. One's it's about people, and it's about the place, and it's about processes. And I think like you two, we would have to agree that whiskey is, in Scotland, we've got a saying that whiskey is showbiz for ugly people, and the 3 of us fit that bill.
So there's an answer you didn't think you were going to get. Oh, brilliant.
I think there's, and just to sum that up, Stuart, I think there's a reason why people still seem to prefer to listen to this than watch it.
Well, yes, and I'm with them. I mean, it's been unpleasant seeing you both over Zoom this morning. But no, I mean,
can I just come in there, Stuart, very quickly? I know you're going to say, you just mentioned it. You've been there 20 years, if not slightly over 20 years. A, when it comes to Glengoyne, are you the longest serving person there? B, what changes when you arrived as a young, fresh-faced full of the joys, dark hair down to the shoulders. What changes have you seen since your appearance now? And finally, can we ask, what are you drinking before we even get into all this conversation?
Yes.
We start with what we're drinking. We're going to drink first.
In reverse order.
Well, this is what I'm drinking is kind of woven into the story of what have we done over the last 20 years or so, because there was a wee spell during that time in the early 2000s, I would say, between about, well, let's think 2000, and Valerie, who runs this program, will be shouting at our down at the I was going to say radio, the speaker when she hears this. I can't remember the exact start date, but there was a spell of about 8 or 9 years where we allowed people to choose a cask, fill the cask, and sit patiently while it matured, and then we'd bottle the cask and people could take it away. And if you think about, you guys know your sizes, etc. If you get a hogshead, you're going to fill it with about 250 liters. You then some of the spirit will disappear, and depending whether you water it down or do like we've done and release it at cask strength, you'll end up with a good couple hundred bottles comfortably after 10 years or so from a hoggy. So for me, that's quite, I mean, I'm a super heavy consumer, but that's quite a lot of whiskey for one chap to drink. So what we did was we chipped in with some fantastic people. Actually, I think there was 7 of us, and there was some great friends that kind of work with whiskey overseas. So there's people like Marius Vesnus, Richard Keller, and my brain's going really well. The third one would he's going to shoot me for forgetting him. And so there's some of our sort of chums in the industry, but overseas, and there's also some good friends at work that have chipped in, and also Robbie Hughes. So there's 7 there's 7 of us there, and what we did was we selected a ruby port hogshead. And we did that because we absolutely adore Glengoyne and the sherry casks, and it's so great that we've stuck to that signature style since 18 Oatcake or whatever. But we just thought, well, why not try something a wee bit different? So this is a ruby port hogshead. It was distilled on the 25th of March 2009, bottled in November of last year. There was 277 bottles, of which we get 1/7, and this is bottle number 16. And I'm going to.
Oh, it's open it.
I think what a way to start the morning, than with our own kind of
absolutely
version of Glengoyne.
Screenshot right there. That's wonderful. I mean, people salivating listening to that, Gordon. What do you think?
Fantastic. Then, yeah, typically that's a very Glengoyne sort of story as well. It's exactly the sort of family-run business that we are, and epitomizes the sort of people element that Stuart said. So no, I completely agree with that. That sounds amazing. And having had a fully matured import cask as one of our casks unlocked last year, absolutely fabulous.
It's one of the questions we get a lot, Stuart. When I was a tour guide, the first question was, how on earth did you get the job? Who gave you it? With the drinking. It was Stuart, by the way. And the second question was, can we get your own cask filled? It must have been so popular, Stuart. So many people would love that privilege, but it's no longer available.
And that's right. We should say that before the phone starts ringing off the hook. We did stop doing it, and the reasons for that were just it was almost like you're a victim of your own success. And at the same time, well, when we started doing it back in let's say 2005 or 6 or something like that, the sales of Glengoyne around the world weren't nearly as strong as they are today, and the income that Glengoyne put into the profit that Glengoyne would put into the company wasn't, to be honest, as a result of that, wasn't as strong as it was today. And it was actually a really good way of bringing in some money, and that's the cold hard facts. But but much more importantly, creating sort of long-term sort of brand advocates, if you like. You know, the people around the world that have a cask, and it's maybe 7 years old, and they've been to visit it every year. We would hold birthday parties for them, and we would draw samples every year. And at the end, when it's bottled, you get presented with a living library of year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. So for people that are really interested in whiskey, it was a great way to not only have a whiskey, but to have a living version of it, to see how it's changed from year 1 to year 2 to year 3. And a lot of the people that we work with in doing this found that kind of journey aspect of it really kind of fascinating. But so it was terrific fun. But I think what stopped it was partly that we started to need almost everything we could make, because it was becoming more and more popular out around the world. And also, we were starting to really annoy the warehousing team, because there became so many of them, and they would say, oh, Gareth from Manchester is visiting his cask, and Klaus from Germany tomorrow, and can you go and find them in the warehouse? Do you remember where you put them again? And you might have to move some to allow access, and we're going to draw a sample for them, and they're going to be there. And so it's quite and when you do that over 6 casks is one thing, but you do that over 500, 600, 700 casks, it starts to become quite a logistical challenge, I guess. And I'm just lucky enough that managed to get a share in a couple of casks. It was beautiful, still maturing. So
beautiful. What are you drinking, Mr. Dallas?
Well, very good question. I had poured myself, knowing Stuart was on, a Glengoyne 18, but because it's Easter and we're getting to spring, I have commissioned our good friend Michael Sim, to come on and take me through a cocktail connected to Easter. And the clue is it's got an egg in it. So we're going to be doing some cocktails. And in anticipation of that, I bought myself a bourbon. Not too expensive, because I'm not a great cocktail expert, so I thought I didn't want to risk some great single malt, but it's a lovely rye whiskey. You know it, Gordon? Bullet?
Yeah, that's a bourbon. It's not a rye.
Sorry, a rye whiskey.
No, that's a bourbon.
Sorry, a bit spicy rye whiskey. I have had it. I have researched it. So there's what I know about whiskey in North America.
If you hold the bottle up, I can see you've researched it.
So, I've been practicing, so I didn't want something, single malt to practice my cocktails.
And that'll work very well with what you're going to do in Mikey.
Right.
I'm drinking something that I was made aware of and got is a Berry Brothers and Rudd, which is a great name. Two very good friends of mine, probably all of ours. We have Doug McIver and Ronnie Cox on here. Anything that has their name on it's going to be great. This is a blended malt, matured in sherry casks, no age, 44.2%. Absolutely gorgeous, and a great example of great blended malt whiskey, and it was not too expensive either. So fabulous whiskey. I'm loving it. So there we are.
Well, can I just get back? Well, we've got a whiskey in hands. Those questions about the award you won there, the global visits manager, Stuart. With sometimes in having the past on a insider's guide. What is the insider's guide to being a distillery visits manager? What do you need to do? What happens? Could you explain to people what the job entails?
It's a really tough recipe for doing it well, I think, and that is find an absolutely stunning distillery with we touched a little bit earlier, and I'm going to say the same thing again because it's genuinely true. I mean, who among us isn't genuinely proud of the way that the whiskey's made at Glengoyne or indeed other distilleries? And none of us will say we have the best process. Our processes are better than other people's. But I genuinely believe that statement we use, which is that no one takes more time nor care. People will make it differently, and people will do different things at different parts of the process. But it's so well considered, and it's stayed true to its roots for all these years. And if this is a style of whiskey you like, you won't find a better one. So that's one thing, a real sense of having something that people believe in. So you guys believe in it as much as I do, and all the people that we recruit as our as our distillery ambassadors. Some of them are come as students. Some of them have had really interesting careers elsewhere and have taken maybe early retirement and still come and work another 20 years with us or whatever. We got real longevity in the team. So that's the second element. The first bit's being proud of the process, and then that flows through everyone. I don't have to say to people, could you pretend you like it? Or could you big up the process or something? You just have to say, look, come in every day, tell the truth about what we do, show off this great process in these amazing surroundings. I mean, it's a beautiful part of the world, and we're near the cities of Glasgow and to an extent Edinburgh, rather than being away up in the sort of northern tip somewhere. So, to be honest with you, it's kind of like you have to try and keep the visitors away sometimes, because everyone wants to come and share in this kind of splendor, and that'll be one of the issues when we reopen, that there'll only be so many kind of slots available just through this sort of social distancing, etc.
Well, it's interesting. I should, Gordon, sorry, Gordon, before you jump in there, Stuart, for people on YouTube, I'm holding up Exhibit A, which you won't make much of. You can see it's a graph there, and I got this from a box of some Glengoyne memorabilia, and it's from 1986, Stuart. And before we come on to speak to you, this is visit numbers. And this is what I was trying to get. At its very peak in July, we had 5,292. And Gordon, we tried to calculate the year of 1986. What did you come to?
Somewhere about a total of about between 20 and 25,000 visitors were passing through Glengoyne back in 1986, which I still think is a fairly good number in terms of, if you think of where single malt was back then, or whiskey in terms of where it is now. I mean, it's not a bad number at all.
And there was only one tour. That's one thing I wanted to bring to Stuart. There was only one tour. You turned up, you get round, and you get sent away again. But that's not the case now, number-wise or number of tours. So could you explain what is an offer and why you decided to put these offers on?
Well, again, so a lot of what's an offer comes back to being proud of the process, and if you really kind of believe in what you do, because this is sound like a real advert. I do apologise, because I know your show's not really meant to be like that.
But we'll bring it down. Don't worry, I'm going to bring it down soon. Don't worry.
You know, when you've got these processes you're proud of, you kind of want to shine a light in them, because you go, okay, why don't we? So a number of years ago now, we set out to say, well, why don't we try and go into as much depth as we can and kind of share as much as we can? So there's sort of no secrets. We're very much a kind of open book, and people started to react to that. And there's a couple of things that I really like. I'm really pleased with something called the Malt Master experience, and that is, as you well know, you come along, you have a lovely tour, you have possibly too many whiskies, and it involves analysing. You sit down for a tasting of 5 different single casks, and so they'll be representative of our style. So there's a refill cask, there's a first fill bourbon cask, there's a couple of different European oak first fill sherry casks, and a first fill American oak sherry cask, that's also previously held sherry. And the range of styles and colours is, as you well know, quite kind of breathtaking, and it's a great way of getting people's minds focused and saying, well, this is like a sort of maturation tutorial, I guess, because this is why European oak does this. It's because of the way that they treat the wood. If you want the kind of depth and the reasons why the flavours come, we'll share that with you, and we'll tell you why the 2 European oak casks that have been made by the same cooper and sat in the same part of the warehouse and from the trees from the same oak species from the same forest. We'll tell you why that whiskey is different as well. There's reasons for all this, and people like hearing that. So you do this sort of analysis thing, and then probably even more fun, we then say, right, you're no longer the head warehouseman. You're going to become John Glass, the almost legendary Glengoyne malt master, whose role it is to kind of knock our whiskies together on a daily basis by combining the casks in the right way. And we're going to shine a light on what John does with you, and we're going to let you be effectively the blender of your own single malt by combining these quantities to get these together in different quantities, and we use some scientific equipment, and so it gets quite fun, and people like kind of making stuff and that sort of stuff. But in the end, they've created an utterly unique Glengoyne. There'll be none, unless we've got fantastic measuring equipment and go down to a kind of milliliter. There'll be no two that are ever made the same in any one year because of the different quantities.
It's really funny. You've got people who really take it really, really seriously, and there's others who are a bit like Beaker from the Muppets, and much more, just a bit more laissez-faire and whatever. Yeah, exactly. When you watch people do it, it's really funny how different styles they do. I quite like the Beaker approach.
Yeah. So that's great fun. And another thing, one thing that I really love as well. I can embarrass my colleague here, Mr. Gordon Dallas, who has created a Glengoyne sort of storytelling experience, and that's another reason that there's a sort of quite a rich tapestry to our history, but with a common sort of thread running through it. And Gordon charts the story of the five different families that have owned the distillery since, well, from before 1833, because he talks about the illicit days with some zeal. Actually, I think he'd love to have been back in those days, smuggling whiskey to his heart's content, wouldn't he?
I'll get Spielberg.
Relish in that.
The scripts with Spielberg, I would love to be doing that myself, up the hill dressed as the urchins, looking out for the excise men.
And if anybody didn't see, obviously, you know, I'm surrounded by a global icon and a TV star. He was on ITV not 2 months ago talking about this. So, yeah.
It's actually good of us to spend time with you, Gordon, when you think about it, isn't it?
I feel very honoured, if I'm honest.
Global icon, TV star.
So I love that, and it's basically 5 chapters of the book, each one brought to life by his nibs there, and delivered. I mean, delivered by Gordon as a wonderful experience, but also he's then kind of gone through and helped his colleagues develop the sort of madcap presentational style that helps tell the story well. And there's some props and there's some dressing up along the way. There's some great whiskies along the way, and each chapter Gordon selected a whiskey that represents that particular bit of the story. You know, so what would it have been like when the Lang brothers first arrived, which I think would probably be chapter 3.
Yes.
And then they introduced the sherry cask and explain where those came from, and I won't go into all of that, otherwise you won't pay your money and come and do it. But that's a tremendous experience, and I think so. For me, one of them is a kind of deep dive into real science behind. Well, this partly the science and partly the kind of alchemy of maturation, and then the unseen thing about what happens behind the scenes with John's job. So that's really good. And then the other side of the coin is this amazing kind of entertainment show, which I've obviously seen it a few times, and I just love it every time. It's just storytelling is kind of what we're about, really, I think. So
absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think the way we do things at Glengoyne and the way we've even done things online has been great in terms of pivoting and being able to provide that experience to people who are sitting in front of a computer. Stuart, I've got couple of other things I want to ask you. Obviously, you're in charge of all of our brand homes, if we're honest. So you're in charge of Edinburgh Gin, which I believe is I don't know what gin is, but it's a product that mix with tonic or something like that. I'm not sure.
Another podcast.
This is Whiskey Unscripted. That's another podcast, obviously. And also Rosebank, which of course we are building back up from, building a new distillery on the existing site. These present different challenges, I guess, to you as a brand homes visitor, sort of focused type person, in terms of, these are in different locations, very different to Glengoyne, and you're starting from scratch a little bit as well.
Well, yeah, and I'm going to come back to if what we do is storytelling, what an amazing story we've got to tell through there. So that's your starting point, and then you think, well, how do I tell that story, and who do I need to help tell the story, and how much more depth can I understand about the story? And it's basically there's a kind of couple of stories there, as you well know, and briefly, one of them is about this revival and about the Russell family and their part in through Peter's long-term vision, and through Leonard, and ultimately through Tom as well, who've all been to multiple times to Rosebank to sort of keep an eye on things. But so there's a story about bringing back an iconic distillery that was, as you know, mothballed in 1993. And then the interesting, why we're having to replace all the kit, because some of it just sort of perished a little bit in terms of the sort of wooden washbacks, etc. You would end up with them leaking. Uh, but when it comes to the stills were stolen by the security guard. Uh, and so no, there's a really interesting story about how we bring this back to life. But then probably even more interesting for me, and you guys are whiskey aficionados, but we've got this unusual mix of triple distillation and these lovely three external worm tubs, and
Mhm.
working out what that does. There's a lightness to the spirit potentially, from the triple distillation, and then we take that spirit and run it through tubs. And I think, Gordon, you'll know, is that the only setup in Scotland, the only distillery that combines those two aspects of distilling?
It's certainly, I can't think of another one that does that. I think I know distilleries that use triple distillation. I know distilleries that use worm tubs, but the combination of the two, I genuinely don't think there is. And that obviously is probably, and I can't think of another time in the whole industry maybe when there was anybody doing that. But clearly one of the reasons why Rosebank was such a legendary style.
And it's got its challenges because just because you're starting from scratch, and because so we were lucky enough, as you know, very good relationship with I think probably all of the industry, but Diageo being a good case in point, and we're able to come to an arrangement with Diageo that allowed us to call the distillery by the name of Rosebank, and B, get some fantastic stock from them. And you've tasted some of it. I mean, it's breathtaking. And we've got amazing whiskey which is probably unlike any other whiskey in Scotland because of the way it's made. Really unique stuff. And we've got great whiskey from 89, I think, through to about 93. Would that be correct, do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we'll start distilling. So we've actually released a 30-year-old now. And that 30-year-old was made, well, funnily enough, 30 years ago. There it is there.
There it is.
So we
Wow.
will there'll be an Ian Macleod distilled version of that available in about 32 years. So there's a kind of
that's
60-year span between that one being distilled that Gordon's
Wow.
showing us, and between our one being actually mature when you think of that. And that's for me that's a really good sort of image, or a really good sort of summary about the challenges round about Rosebank, but also the fun round about it as well.
Absolutely.
And just what, to be in any way involved with it in any sort of small way is just a real privilege, I think.
One more thing just to touch on is we do get asked a bit about this, and I sort of know the answer, but I'm going to ask you, obviously, is a lot of people talk about Tamdhu. Let's not leave Tamdhu out there. People like to go to Tamdhu. Obviously, no visitor centre currently, but and it's only open really a couple of days during the festival, Spirit of Speyside Whisky Festival, which unfortunately has gone online this year, but hopefully we'll be back next year. No immediate plans, I don't think, to really open a visitor centre there currently. Would that be right?
No immediate. The word immediate, no immediate plans. Not the sort of thing that you would rule out in the longer term. I mean, it's another real kind of jewel in the sort of Fatter family's crown, if you like. What an amazing place, and in a way, the fact that it's really hard to get there, and the fact that it's only open for sort of special occasions is almost part of the great thing about it. We have other distilleries which will have lots of visitors to them, and rightly so. And part of it is, partly it's nice just to have something that's kind of up your sleeve a wee bit. And when people do go there, the real wow about Tamdhu, again, I keep talking about people, but I mean, albeit that they're still slightly feral up there, people like Sandy. I mean, amazing, absolutely amazing, passionate kick. Sandy's going to kick me next time he sees me. I did that deliberately, but no, I mean, they're just dyed-in-the-wool whiskey enthusiasts that are running an amazingly built distillery that back in Victorian times was the shining example of the latest technology in the industry, and the mighty spey flows through it, and I mean, it's just what a place to be.
Stunning. It is
and
amazing.
the people that are lucky enough to get there, maybe during the festival, or maybe you might find it'll be something like we'll open it another couple of times a year apart from the festival. It might end up being something like that. There's
Yeah.
not going to be 100,000 visitors swamping the place.
And I think also we've got to remember Tamdhu's still a relatively unknown single malt brand, and the people that do know it and the people that buy it and drink it, and you really can't. We sell pretty much everything we have of Tamdhu at the moment. Really are onto a winner because it's a fantastic dram for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I make a couple of observations? And I want to ask Stuart if he'd help you out, because I've got some fantastic challenge up my sleeve. But as an observation,
You haven't got any sleeves.
Gordon, we're part of what's called an ambassadorial team. And before that department existed, you're looking at the man, or we're speaking to the man who basically did different things. Stuart, would that be fair to say that you had about 3, if not 4 different jobs in the past? You were travelling across the world a little bit doing presentations, and you were being the visits manager, and you were being the face of Glengoyne to many extent. Is that, and that's why you're only 30-year-old, but look, maybe nearer 50.
I mean, gosh, where do you start with that? I mean, firstly, to be mentioned in the same breath as this ambassador here in terms of travelling, I am to Gordon what I am as a cyclist to Bradley Wiggins. So I do technically cycle, but you know, so I used to be. They used to use me and indeed abuse me, Gordon. I love that part of the job. It was perhaps 2-3 weeks a year. It was just really dabbling, and enough for it just to be like well-paid holidays, to be honest with you. And then you get to meet these amazing people. You could spend a week traveling around Sweden and go and visit all the whiskey clubs and societies. You know, you're driving down a road you've never been on before. You've got great company in the car because one of our the great people from our import team is going to be there. They're always really interesting people. You turn up a little town in the middle of the woods, and actually there's a village hall full of people to listen to yours truly speaking about whiskey. They would listen to be honest, a chimpanzee speak about whiskey. I think they're just mad for whiskey. And it's partly to do with the way the market's set up and the fact that we can't advertise in the same way that you normally would. So you're quite happy to go over and spread the word in person. And I think if you're a whiskey fan in Sweden, you're in a pretty good place, to be honest with you. So I did a wee bit of that, and then it turned into going to America a bit more, and that was great because going to America is like being in a big Hollywood movie or cartoon all the time. You've got a Scotsman, you know, it's kind of all windswept and interesting. And again, meeting some tremendous people, some real whiskey fans, and traveling about. So no, it was a hugely enjoyable thing that I did, but it was only ever for, like, let's say 3 weeks a year when I did it all up. It was nothing like.
Yeah, but it's how the industry's grown up now, Gordon's lots more people doing that job that Stuart used to. And on that, the reason I asked that was, on that collegiate all working together, would you like to help Gordon Dundas out in this week's challenge?
All right.
Give that a go, thank you, yes.
Right, okay, here we go.
No
This
idea
is the
what's coming,
finale.
Stuart. No idea.
No, it's no idea. Give a wee gap for those playing at home. Here we go, the Whiskey Unscripted Easter Challenge. Now, I've got the question. Could you guys come up with the answer? And give a little pause, so if you want to play at home. So the answer is 2.81 times. What's the question? Play at home.
Oh,
Chaps, you can confer.
I think I know the answer to this, Stuart.
Are these all in a whiskey theme? Just to
Yes.
Yeah, it's Whiskey Unscripted, yeah. Well,
Okay.
What were you thinking?
I was trying to think of your personal life, Gordon, and where that figure would fit in. And I could go down a few different roads. No,
I think I know the answer to this, Stuart.
I'll take a drink for that.
You go for it, Gordon.
I think what he is talking about there is the distillation of Mortlach.
You are absolutely correct. It's 2.81 times. Gordon, you could explain that one, could you?
No, I can't, because actually, I remember when Mortlach was relaunched about 5, 6, 7 years ago. Georgie Bell was the global ambassador for it, and I was sitting in a class in Whiskey Live Shanghai, something like that, and Georgie was there. She put up a diagram of how 2.81 times distillation looked, and I couldn't follow it. I was like, and she talked us through it, and I sort of vaguely got it, and then I couldn't remember. So I cannot talk you through how 2.81
Okay.
distillations. All I know is it is Mortlich's distillation regime. It's not twice, it's not 3 times, it's 2.81.
Bing! And I'm glad you mentioned that, Stuart, about Rosebank. So that's interesting. Double at Glengoyne, triple at Rosebank. But there's Mortlach. Number 2, confer and play at home. The answer is Ardnahoe. What's the question?
Well, it could be a lot of different things, but
Yeah,
what do you think, Stuart?
Ardnahoe. I mean, it's probably not
Or-
going to be where is there a distillery, is it?
You mentioned general.
It's going to be a little bit more nuanced than that, maybe.
I think it might be either what is Hunter Lane's new distillery called? It could be what is the latest distillery on Isla called?
Ding, 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 ding. That's right. That is the question. Well done. Question.
Just briefly, I must put a good advert in for them here. Anyone that's planning on going to Isla, you absolutely have to go and see Ardnahoe. It's a terrific visit.
Is it?
Oh, really highly recommend it. Lovely people, beautifully designed, amazing view. The whiskey's young, so you'll be properly judging it when it's got an aged portfolio. Yeah. But the processes look fantastic.
And
brilliant.
Worm tubs.
And worm tubs, yes. I stroked their worm tubs when I was there. I did that.
Did you?
I did.
This is exactly what I'm looking for, some chat about the answers. As a quiz master, you can't get better. It's 2 each with the Dundas and Hendry dream team. Here we go. Question 3. There's only 5 of these. Question 3. Here's the answer. The answer is Bracla, Glenuri, and Loch Nagar.
It's got to be Royal Bracla, Royal Loch Nagar, Royal. So they have the ability.
Ding, ding. Yes, that's a nice easy one. That's the easy one, and that's 3 down, 3 in the bag.
Gordon, you're doing well for us. Thank you.
Yes. Here's the answer. The answer. Play at home. What's the question? Bladnoch. Bladnoch is the answer. But what is the question in Whiskey Unscripted, Season 3, Episode 6?
Most southerly in Scotland?
I would
Ding,
probably
ding, ding, ding is the correct answer. The most southerly. Anyone been?
I have been to Bladnoch. I was in Bladnoch probably in about 2007 when it was owned by a gentleman called Raymond Armstrong, who was from Northern Ireland. And it's now owned by an Australian. It's been reinvented a little bit. But there's something funny about the story of when Raymond bought it, and it was like the inability to distill or something. He bought it with they couldn't produce at it for a certain amount of time, but he managed to overturn that or something like that. I can't remember the full story, but yeah, it's been relaunched recently, bought by an Australian entrepreneur.
Stuart, nice place?
Sorry?
It's a nice place. Is it a nice place? You said
sorry.
You've been?
I thought you said next, please. I thought I was asking the questions now.
No.
Yes, it is it would have been a similar sort of year that I went. Maybe we were there the same day, Gordon, and didn't bump into each other. It's lovely that you've lost swathes of Northern Irish subscribers to the podcast with your terrible impression.
Yeah.
The last 2, by the way. The last 2. I'm not giving no clues away because it's a full house. So, for those listening, Rassie, Ardnamurchan, Dornoch, and McNeen. That's the answer. What's the question out there? Please confer. Let's hear your thoughts.
Rassie, Ardnamurchan, Dornoch, and McNeen, I think, within the last 6 months or so, have all released their first whiskey. I would say, but that might not be right. I know Ardnamurchan did last year. McNeen have launched their first whiskey. Dornoch have launched, I think they've launched a whiskey. I'm not 100%. Maybe they haven't actually. And
So are you going to confer? Are you going to back them up? Or?
I know of 2 of the releases, but I suspect he's probably right. He's pretty.
He is right. Correct answer. They produced whiskey in 2020, not new spirits. So after 3 years, they're now producing whiskey. And the last question, I will personally both give you wonderful drams if you get this one right. Here we go. The most difficult one, saved for last: Longmorn, Bowness, Hazelburn. That's the answer. But what's the question?
Is it Campbelltown related in any way? Or?
Not with
Nope.
Longmorn, I don't think.
And
Hazelburn is triple distilled and made for only about 2 weeks of a year. Longmorn, I don't know enough about. What was the third one?
yes,
Bonnet.
take that one. Don't think it's even that closed distillery now. I do apologise for those Bonessians, but this is a very tricky one. But you've done so well. I was going to give you a clue, but I've decided not to. So,
Oh, give us a clue. Come on.
okay, Longmorn, Boness, Hazelburn. The clue is 1919.
I think it must be when they were founded or something. I'm not sure.
I
really don't know.
Okay.
Sure. No.
My second clue for this one, and hopefully people will be shouting at their speakers or shouting at the YouTube. The second clue would be Nika. Nika.
Now wait a minute. I now know the answer.
She sang with the Velvet Underground. That's the wrong answer, isn't it?
That's a good one. That's a good question.
Matsup Taketsuru.
Yes. You're absolutely right. These were the Scottish distilleries. The father of Japanese whiskey, Masasata Taketsuru, worked as an apprentice when he came here to learn about Scotch whiskey making in 1919/1920. That was the answer to the in the question to that answer. So there we go. 5 out of 6 ain't bad, chaps.
Not bad. Yeah, very good.
Fantastic question at the end there, Gordon, to be fair.
Very, very good.
Well done to Mr. Dundas for sniffing it out eventually after the clues, I think.
I know.
To both of you.
I worked that out of it. Well, thank you very much, Stuart Hendry, for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your year as a global icon. So does that mean a cake and crime fighting? I don't know, Gordon. What?
Well, I mean, I think, he'll have an agent in a couple of weeks.
Well, I mean,
Stuart Hendry.
Thank you very much. An absolute pleasure. What a way to start my day.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Hendry. Fabulous to hear from Mr. Hendry. Great to have him on. And fantastic.
Yeah, it's really, really just amazing. I think for me, it's getting the balance right between education and telling people what we do and what we sell, but having fun. Because they're usually on holiday. That's that little balance. It sounds easy to get, but it's more difficult to achieve.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. No, he's brilliant. Really, really good insights from him.
And speaking of balance, that's what I was wanting to ask about balances. I got myself a bottle of, not rye, which I think I was getting confused about earlier on, Gordon.
Yep.
Bourbon whiskey. And I suppose actually, I've had that from people sometimes think Scotch whiskey is all smoky. And all American whiskey is called bourbon. And I thought this was a rye. It is actual a bourbon. Is that right? You know that?
That is a bourbon, yes.
Right,
so Bullet is a Diageo brand. And they do a bourbon and they do a rye. The rye is in a green label.
Right.
That is the difference. But it's very good.
Is it?
That is a bourbon, 50% at least corn. It will have rye in it and it will have malted barley in it.
I got with Mikey Sim, and here we are. Just watch this, Gordon. Here we are making some cocktails with Michael. Boom. It's the moment I've been waiting for. Michael Sim, how are you?
Mate, I'm great. The moment I've been waiting for as well. Finally made it onto the podcast. It's only taken however many episodes.
Don't worry. We have been waiting. We're expecting you, Mr. Bond. Michael, look, I can't. I got this. And I know you are our resident mixologist, as well as being our main brand ambassador for Smokehead, and among other things for Ian Macleod. But you do love a good cocktail, is that not right?
I do, yeah. And I think it was almost kind of like the moment I turned 18, I had this like desire to work in a bar. And yeah, my love for kind of mixology and cocktails just kind of came from that. And I mean, I always tried to push myself. It's interesting, and yeah, I mean, it's almost been like a liquid chef. Do you know what I mean? I'm not talented. My little brother's a chef, and he's an incredible chef. But I don't quite have that temperament. I don't have that temperament to be in the back. I'm better in the front. So yeah, that's what.
But all chefs absolutely psychotic. You're actually quite a decent guy.
Thank you very much. Yeah, no, I mean, I won't tell my little brother you said that, but yeah, no, they do have this unapproachable manner at times.
I know, Michael. The reason I got you on is I can't deny I've had a little practice, and I thought, nah, I need to speak to the expert. I love a whiskey sour, and I thought with Easter coming up, and hopefully folk will be listening to this in the Easter holidays, you can make it with an egg. So there's an Easter theme going on there. But could you take me through a whiskey sour? Explain what it is, and how best to put it together.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a whiskey sour is one of the most easiest mixed drinks you can make with whiskey. It's a balance of whiskey, that could be single malt, blend, grain, or bourbon, whatever sort of whiskey you have. And then it's balancing the kind of sweetness of sugar, the bitterness from lemon juice, and then you've got the egg white added to that, which gives this kind of real smooth mouthfeel when you're drinking the drink.
Yeah, I love it. I have to say, I really enjoy it. And I did the Fringe show a couple of years ago. I have to give him a shout out. The barman, who I can't remember his name, got me behind the bar, and I tried to make one of these. I thought I must do it. So it's taken me 2 years to get my shaker and to get you on the podcast. So Michael Sim, take us away. Whiskey sour. What are we doing?
Amazing, Jimmy. I would have expected as well, just say this before we move on, I would have expected first lockdown, Gordon, for you to buy a cocktail shaker. We're just about to come out of it, and you can go back to bars and have people make your own cocktails again.
I know.
And you're purchasing a cocktail maker. But again, you always got to start somewhere. I've
let myself down. I've let my family down. I've let you down. However, we can still save this. I can still save this.
Yeah, well, that's what we're going to do.
Michael, I mentioned to Big Gordon, that I bought some bourbon because I thought it's kind of cheaper than my single malt. But listen, you're the expert. You know what I've got behind me. What do you think I should do?
Yeah, well, again, really, it depends what. I mean, any whiskey can go into a whiskey cellar. So I'm going to use this whiskey here, which I had it opened, and it's called Mac, by Mac Mira, and it's a Swedish single malt. So I'm going to use this. I mean, this is quite youthful. I think it definitely has caramel added to it, because it does look fairly dark. But it's quite a youthful whiskey, so we're going to get that kind of nice little bit of fire, which is going to come through on the drink. And again, you'll get that with bourbon as well.
Okay.
So bourbon is incredible to do that with. But again, you could use anything. You could use Smokehead. You could use Glengoyne. You could use. I mean, I probably wouldn't use Tamdhu, just because there is an element of me that's a little bit of a purist. But
yeah,
younger kind of Glengoynes and Smokehead, perfectly great for making sours.
Matt, before we start, the two things I'm always worried about is levels, the sort of the combination of quantities. I've got that wrong in the past. And with this drink, what's the thing that can go wrong with a whiskey sour?
Really, the only thing, I mean, I'm going to teach you the perfect quantities. So you'll never forget that. You'll never forget this.
I've got my wee jigger, is that right?
That is it, yep. So you'll need that. As long as you follow this, you can make the perfect whiskey sour. The only thing that could go wrong is, I mean, if you have a large egg and I have a medium egg, we're going to have a different amount of egg white. There we go. So I mean, I've got a medium egg, and medium eggs are kind of perfect for making sours because you don't get a mass amount of white. You're kind of say between kind of 15 and 20 mils of egg white is perfect. But I mean, how do you measure out an egg white? Nobody knows. So So the best place is to start with the whiskey. Easy. Okay. Double measure of whiskey into your shaker. I've got a different shaker than you. You've got a tin shaker, whereas I've got a Boston shaker. It's just slightly different, but same thing. So 50 mils or a double measure of whiskey into your glass. So put that in. Then you've got 50-50 of lemon and sugar syrup.
50-50 of lemon. Is that 50 mLs?
No, so 50-50 mix. So we want 25 mils of lemon juice, freshly squeezed lemon juice. This is the other thing that can go wrong. Yours is going to be a little bit more concentrated. So I would maybe add half of the amount that I'm adding. So if you add half a 25 mils, so 12.5 mils of
This is why I've got the expert in. Brilliant.
of lemon juice. I'm using freshly squeezed. Obviously, it's double concentrated, so you're going to get twice the kick, and it's also going to have a lot more kind of citric acid in there as well. So, and then you need 25 mils of sugar syrup.
Yep, he's mine up.
Nice.
And just explain, and I should say, if you're listening to this, you can go to YouTube later on and check out Michael Sim doing this in the flesh. Sugar syrup, just explain, easy to make.
Easy to make. I mean, I've got a bottle here because I'm absolutely massively lazy. But yeah, I mean, it's just fully dissolved sugar and water. So start off with 100 mils of water, add 100 grams of sugar, fully dissolve that down. Easiest to do is over the hob, just because it'll dissolve a little bit quicker. But then just keep on adding your sugar, kind of tablespoon by tablespoon, until it's fully dissolved. And then as soon as it can't take any more sugar, boof, you're done. You've got sugar syrup.
Yeah, if I can do it, boom, it's easy. So it's looking good.
Now, here's the other thing that can go wrong. We do not want a yolk.
Oh,
And we do not want a yolk in our
No.
what do you call it? Into our cocktail. So I'm just going to break it over a glass. Give it the old separation trick.
Break it over a glass. Here we go. Here we go. This is it. This is a compulsive viewing.
I know. Who can crack the yolk first? Hopefully not me. There we go. Biff, I've done that. I'm just going to chuck this in the bin. Yeah.
So how do you get the oak? Just get the oak out and then you've got the.
So yeah, so just like it's almost tip the yolk into the shell or the other shell, and then the white will fall out. I now have eggy fingers as well. Sorry, I should have thought that through.
Good. Right. Okay. No. I've got the oak inside there. Yep. And I've tried to get it out.
We're going to have to start again, I think.
I'm going to have to start again. This is a disaster, folks. A disaster.
So this is the best thing to do, is to do this over like I don't know what you can call this, a tiny dish. What I've done is I've just cracked the egg over the dish, and then it's easier to resurrect. I'm not wasting any liquid. Do you mean liquid is precious, Gordon? You've got to look after the perfect mix we just put into there.
I knew it'd go wrong with the egg. Absolute disaster. So I know what I'm doing now.
You know what you're doing. So 50 mils of whiskey, 25 mils of sugar, and 12.5 mils of concentrated lemon, or 25 mils of regular freshly squeezed lemon juice.
Here we go, the 12.5. So this is brilliant. There we go. This is egg business. This is the but you can buy, I've seen in the shops, egg white.
You can buy egg white. I think you can buy it in a couple of different supermarkets, but you can also order it on Amazon. If you're looking for egg white, there's also kind of like specialist places you can buy it too. I mean, like food suppliers and stuff like that. You can get egg whites. But again, if you are vegan, for example, you don't need to use egg whites. You can use chickpea water. That is a vegan alternative to using an egg white. There's also a kind of foaming agent you can buy as well. It's like almost like bitters that you just add a couple of drops, and it gives you the same mouthfeel as an egg white. So is your egg white in there?
Egg white's in there now. Took a while.
Perfect. Right, now what we need to do is we need to dry shake this, and then we need to shake it twice. Okay, right. So what we're doing is we're almost trying to kind of cook and aerate the egg white at the same time. So put your lid on top and give it a shake. So the lid on top, give it a shake. It won't feel like you're doing much, but what we're doing is we're just pre-aerating the egg white. We're allowing the acid to cook the egg white too. And this is what's going to give you a real foamy drink when it comes to actually drinking it.
I love it. Right.
So there you go. That's another inside bit of knowledge. So you can see that already. It's so foamy. Now we need to add ice to our glass. Pop ice into the glass. If you're doing this for friends, do not use your hands like I'm doing.
Not same here.
But as it's me drinking it, we're all good. And then add ice to your shaker.
Okay. Right.
And then it's time to shake that up as well.
Put it back in.
So back in and shake it for, I don't know, 15, 20 seconds until the outside is frosted. Yeah?
Yep.
I'll race you.
That is the sound there.
Yeah. There we
That's
go.
just one of my favourite whiskey cocktails.
I know, to be honest, you can't really go wrong with a whiskey sour. And then what we want to do is we want to strain that or double strain it into a glass. So I've got a strainer here and then a sieve just because I don't like ice chippings in my drink all that much. Pour it into my glass.
I used the wrong glass. I realised in my panic, this was my fancy glass for.
I'm just going to put this into the sink. Yeah, again, you can use any glass you want. I mean, let's be honest. If you've got any glass in your house, you can use it. But I like the rocks glass. There we go.
Oh, you see.
There's our whiskey sour.
Brilliant. Yours looks. Oh, it's not very similar. What do you think, consistency, colour-wise?
Very similar.
Michael Sim. Cheers.
There we go. Cheers. Cheers. And it should feel kind of nice and creamy when you taste it.
Yeah, that is lovely. I love a whiskey sour. I think I've done not bad, Michael. That is. So something
again.
Yeah, carry on.
It's not something. As soon as you know the measurements, it's one of those ones that sticks in your head forever. You just know it's 2 parts whiskey to 1 part sugar and 1 part lemon, and
yeah. I just love that. I just love that combination using the sweet and the sour. I love that combination and the heat of the whiskey coming through. And
when you use it, when you use a younger whiskey as well, or you use like a bourbon, you get more of that. You get more of that kind of whiskey flavor coming through. I mean, there's so many flavors that go on in like single malts, for example. It's quite difficult once you add something like lemon juice and egg white and sugar to that to really kind of pick up the floral notes in it. But that saying, you can make twists on sours, for example. Jimmy, I've made a really nice Glengoyne pear sour, for example. And that's sort of kind of bringing to life the pear essence of Glengoyne 10-year-old.
And so, lemon juice, you replace it with pear juice?
No, so I'd still use lemon juice. So the recipe wouldn't change, except from I would add a little bit of pear cognac, and I would add a touch of pear juice as well. And the pear juice and the pear cognac is just going to really let the kind of pear essence kind of sing through the sour as well.
I love that, picking up. Usually it's like being a chef. If you can pair food with whiskey with food, why not pair it with other liquids? I mean, that's what I love about this journey that I'm more than happy to follow you on.
well, that's the thing. I mean, any sort of when we kind of break down what are we trying to do when we make a cocktail, we're trying to add different flavors together to give you something that you're going to enjoy.
Yeah,
I mean that is the essence of it, and it's just like when you're cooking. It's exactly the same, except from we're liquid chefs and not food chefs.
Brilliant. Now, I sent you a list of the alcohol I've got in my sauna here, and you've picked up something that's not whiskey. Gordon Dundas might actually, his toes might be curling right now, but you've picked up something that I said I had in my collection to make a cocktail with. What did you pick?
Yes. So, again, apologies, Gordon. But as you'll know, I wear many hats, and one of them is the beautiful bottle of banana rum that you have behind you.
And again, it's connected to whiskey because Lang's were big whiskey, not only distributors and distillers, but they own Glengoyne. So there is a lovely, they're making whiskey, but they're doing this at the same time. This is the banana rum. There
is a lovely connection there.
So what's the chat with the banana rum, and what could you? And it's a really good. It's a good price. It's great value, and it sounds like this is a great idea for a base spirit. So what do you think we should do?
Yeah, I mean, like just touching on that, like an incredible value for a flavored Jamaican rum. I mean, absolutely insane value. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to kind of bring out those fun and funky vibes within the banana rum. So we've got banana. You also said that you had a bottle of Cointreau, which I can see behind you.
Yes.
Yeah, so Cointreau, the main flavour of Cointreau is?
Orange.
Orange. So bananas and oranges, we're talking tropical funk.
I love it.
And then we've got a little bit of lime juice. And then we have, what is the one thing that the vast majority of people who drink rum drink it with?
Hey, Coke.
It's got to be
Coke.
it's got to be
right.
Coke, rum and Coke. So all we're doing is we're jazzing up a rum and Coke here, and this kind of there's like 3 different ways to make a cocktail. Like the kind of main ways is you can shake and strain, you can build in a glass, or you can stir. So and what we're doing is we're building in a glass here. So we'll start off with a glass,
Right.
and in the bottom of that glass, add 50 mils of banana rum.
Right. Okay.
While you're doing that, I'm just going to drink this whiskey sours.
50 mils of banana rum. Yeah, I think this might be the first non-whiskey in the show, but it all has the same antecedents. They all came from the same tree, as it were, from the past. So,
and this is why you've got me on. All you've done is talk about whiskey. You bring me on, and then I just shake things up and I start talking about things like rum.
That's why I love you. Right, so we're building it up here. This is the finale of episode 6. What we do next?
So you have 12.5 mils of Cointreau.
Oh.
So what this is going to do, this is going to add like an additional kind of element of sweetness to it. But you're also got those kind of nice orange tropical flavors that are going to run through this too.
Yeah. And these just for if you're watching or listening, these little jiggers measurements are pretty useful when it comes to cocktails.
Yeah, because again, like
hoping.
Yeah. There's absolutely no way. I mean, if you've got a speed pourer on things, I know, for example, if I'm pouring from a speed pourer, about 3 seconds is 25 mils and 6 seconds is 50 mils. But if I just open up the bottle and pour it, like, God, who knows? Who knows? The one thing you can do, here's a life hack for you, though, by the way. If you do not have a jigger in the house and you have a scale, you can put your glass on the scale and pour 25 grams is 25 mils. 50 grams is 50 mils.
That's fantastic. That's brilliant.
There you go.
There you go.
There's a bit for the pinnacle of your show.
Never be stuck for making a cocktail again. Brilliant.
So in there we've got Lang's banana rum. We've got 50 mils of Lang's banana rum. Then we've got 12.5 mils of the Cointreau. So then you're going to go in with 12.5 mils of lime juice or 25.5 mils of fresh lime juice.
Okay, yeah, with the fresh lime juice.
If you've got fresh lime juice, go in with 25 mils of fresh lime juice. Now, Lang's banana rum's quite sweet, Cointreau's quite sweet, and Coke's quite sweet. So we need something to kind of counterbalance that. Cocktails are usually made up of 3 different ingredients: 1 strong ingredient, 1 sweet ingredient, and 1 sour ingredient. So we've got our strong ingredients here, which is our rum and our orange liqueur, and then we've got our sweet ingredient, which is our Coke, and then we've got our sour ingredient, which is lime.
Brilliant.
So pop your lime into there.
That's it. Freshly squeezed.
And then fill that glass full of ice.
As you say, not much left now of the old ice, but here we go. Would prefer more, but that'll do for the purposes of the demonstrations. We've got lovely ice in there as well. Give it a swirl.
And then top up the Coke.
Pretty much, just the glass. I've got
a small Diet Coke for a small little man.
No, that's a big Coke. That's a
That's not a big Coke. There we go.
So how's it looking there? If you're on YouTube, it looks very nice. So Slainte, one and all. My God. That is lovely. That's everything you've said there. Everything you've said. Banana's coming through. A little hint of the orange. Just as it's getting sweet, you get that lime coming through there. Just that little sour note, that little citrus note, just to take off the sweetness. And I love fizzy drinks anyway. So the fizz of the Coke.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're looking like for this, I would use something like Coke Zero, just because, like, I mean, as I said, like, Lang's banana rum's quite sweet, and so is Cointreau. Does have quite a large portion of sugar in the liqueur. So yeah, something like Coke Zero or Diet Coke, bang that in there, and you're good to go. Loads of ice. It's a hot sunny day, barbecue. Now we're talking, and that shirt, Gordon, and then we're cooking with gas in Scotland.
We're about to finish the episode. Give me a couple other cocktails, maybe whiskey related, that I could practice. I'm going to practice this hour because I've got an egg that's cracked from my desk and it's dripping down right now. The yolk is, and I'm doing a tasting in a couple of hours, so I've got some work to do. But other whiskey cocktails, I could maybe start to practice and maybe come back to you and see if I've done them properly.
So if we're talking a stirred down drink, old fashions are like probably the easiest, if not most well-known whiskey cocktail around the world. And then you've got something like a highball as well, which is a built in the glass.
Yeah.
So you've got built in the glass, you've got shake and strain, which is your whiskey sour, and then you've got a stirred down drink, which is an old fashioned. And there's your three standard whiskey cocktails that you can use at home, or use at home, make at home.
I'll get back to you. Michael Sim, thank you very much for joining us on Whiskey Unscripted. Cheers.
Thank you. Awesome. Cheers.
It's good, isn't it? It's great. That's
Fabulous,
it's just
fabulous.
having good fun with what you've got in your cupboard and these
Absolutely.
whiskey sours. You can, that's the base variations in a theme. If you like your smoky
Yeah,
whiskey or
absolutely.
different type, yeah, great.
Absolutely. That was fabulous. Fabulous.
I'm almost finished myself. Thank you so much for joining us. It's
Thank you.
well done, and
Yeah,
congratulations to you and Stuart Hendry for, I would say, completing the challenge.
I like that feature, though. I think you and I need to play that feature again. I'm going to come up with some answers and see if you can guess the question. So that is our
think
new
it's great.
game.
I think it's the new game, and I can't wait when we're out and about doing whiskey shows. That's a great thing to get a big crowd of people to have them all
Absolutely.
conferring. What's the best question to that answer? So,
Fantastic.
well done to Stuart, well done to Michael Sim as well, and
Yeah.
Gordon Dundas.
Slainte.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, Lanjava.
on the whiskey trail.